falling edge, that's poetry. It's a marker, it's a map, so to speak, of a territory that is just now coming into existence in ways that suggest the increasing awareness of one's own vulnerability in the world.
I want it to be both capture our experiences and yet be open enough to allow some sort of new experience to happen as well.
You know, there's a 20th century history of works in which translucency suggests that forever beyond of reading, the page you haven't seen yet but which we'll encounter. And this is more translucent than any vellum I've encountered. So you read more deeply into it. And that means your design decisions about where to situate images and words really show up here.
As the light's coming through too, then you get the second reflection and you're sort of reading the shadowing, which I think is going on with
That's
that.
why I pulled it back off the wall.
Yeah.
Because the
Good idea.
The shadow of the type
Right.
is evocative of this other shadow, the existential shadow that language casts on whatever its subject might be.
I really like the fact that you can read across, through, and then as the portions are removed, you get a different reading.
It has as much life as a composite seen through layers as it does in its original status as a discrete entity. You put a lot of work into developing a structure, a pentameter, a set of ABBA rhymes. It holds to that very well. You have plenty of room for devices like enjambment, where it changes its sense when I go to the next line. All of these things are properties of poetry per se, but they're also larger properties of the condition of hearing.
I think what was interesting about this piece is we're not going, here's the shot, you're doing a poem about this particular aspect. It was more, I'm going to come up with, choose 25 images, you're going to write 25 poems, and they were done independent. The experience was together, but the expression was separate. But the perspective is shifting all the time. The light is on you, or the projection of the image is on you. It's on the window itself, it's the light in the window, and then it's the window image through. Maybe you look to the outside and then you're shifting back in again. So you're perpetually doing this shift in time and space, I think, with what you see in front of you.
Well, it always starts with a story for me. So when I have a conversation with someone at the beginning of the project, I usually ask, tell me the story. And then I use that as the starting point. Here it was the travels that you had done, and you wanted the light. That was the biggest challenge, is how to bring light, because you've used windows for transmitting
In life
light.
itself, too, how to bring the light in.
Yes. But I thought that was just a wonderful challenge.
I think that you never, I always feel like it's never quite done, it's never quite settled either. So that physical interaction, like I'm forcing you to, well, not I'm forcing you, but this piece is forcing you to not be still.
I was thinking about to sleep with one eye open and one eye closed, in the sense not only is it about water, but it's about perception and what you're seeing and not seeing at once.
Do I need to read the words with this, structural definition of the visuals? So are they working together? Is it all separate? And then I look to the left side page and you're thinking, well, now it's falling out of the image itself. So, what does that do? But it's kind of interesting, because then maybe I want the spine now to be there. And how does that begin to change the way I'm relating to this piece?
Well, you could get lost in here.
Yeah, you could get lost.
Right. Here's where we get to the nature of the rainforest you saw when you wrote that. It is
So much
easy
time
to
has
get lost in
passed
that.
and still the bloom, which I think is interesting with that. Deconstructing its components, like we were discussing this movable spine, falling edge, movable spine, that the pegs on the other piece that we're just looking at, is that the spine of the book? And then you start to think about your own spine and the human body connection to that.
Well, it moves over to the side so that it's easier to put pages.
But you can
in
also
place.
play, are you looking at this through, does this magnify? Does this then become like this, where you're seeing the line here and then you're seeing this segment here? Is that sort of framing that out? So
Oh,
this
absolutely.
has an end to it rather than an open experience, so it's what's in the middle with all of this. It is a different kind of engagement with this though, and it's not, the movement is much slower and more considered.
And depending on the layering, like you're just getting certain lines that leap
I love
up.
this reading of, you're
Yes.
reading the lines between the lines,
Right.
which is, is a
Literally.
surprise, right? It has a component of the framing, so then
Yes.
rather than a spine of a book, it becomes the edge frame,
Yeah.
or it becomes a book that has a spine that allows you to open up. It's a much wider, longer book with the spine not in the middle. And also the sense of really liking that glow underneath.
Yeah.
Do you push it down or...
That's what connects it to the others.
Well, and the floatiness of it, so it's not locked with the table,
It animates it.
It animates it, yeah. It feels like the world is falling off of an edge, the collapsing. And I feel like there's a sense of urgency and responsibility as an artist. I feel that more and more now,
And
because
those
of
dark-
what's going on in
Right.
the world.
And those dark images, then there's another person who comes in, who could be one of us, but then sometimes people just want to have those already out of the way and then build to something that's a lot more positive. So depending on your own idea about the future, you might want those.
Yeah, do you start with a dark base and build up?
That's what I mean.
I mean, you're really noticing, I think, in this particular piece, what's happening on the ground. What's happening right beneath your feet. Potentially, you could be on the falling edge, or you could be on a moving edge, or something that's not allowing the stability to happen. So the House of Cards idea, the fact that at any moment this could just collapse. What happens if light passes through some of these? Light is embedded in these too, but suppose there was a light that kind of allowed even more projection opportunities to kind of happen with this as well. It's the most clearly separate, isn't it, of all, and you're building the house. I think this
Yeah.
is fantastic,
It's ended up in a way that has more of a structure than we ever anticipated.
And the fact that they're messy. They go off the grid. They go.
I like that.
Yeah, I
Going
do
back
too.
to that square.
And it is about Iceland. It is how Iceland is kind of viewed.